We'll bang the gavel, put us into session here. I'm going to go ahead and read this in the very beginning. This meeting is utilizing the GoToWebinar application for this live broadcast. For this meeting, we'll be using questions functionality of this tool in order to accommodate public comment. On desktop computers, the questions section of the app is located at the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel that is on the right side of your screen. On mobile devices, there is a question mark on the bottom toolbar that opens the questions screen. For those that would like to comment during this meeting, please enter your comment into the questions portion of the app and be sure to state the item you will be commenting on. During the public comment of each item, staff will read aloud the comments provided by the public for all to hear for that specific item. Be timely with your questions, as once the public hearing is closed or the item has been discussed by council and voted on, no more comments will be accepted for that item. What camera? We're going to refer to a camera. Do we know? Is he changing all the time?
It's broad right now.
Middle one? All right. All right, in the middle. All right. All right, may I have roll call, please?
Mayor Harris?
Here.
Vice Mayor Boomgarden?
Here.
Councilmember Cardoza?
Here.
Councilmember Espandola?
Here.
Councilmember Shaw?
Here.
All right, and we will move to invocation and inspiration, Mr. Shaw. And then pledge of allegiance by the flag by Councilmember Cardoza, please.
Please stand and join me. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you humbly tonight, and we just ask for your wisdom. We ask for your guidance. You told us in your word, too much is given, much is required. And we ask for your wisdom and your grace from our president all the way down through our state leaders, county leaders, and local leaders. We pray that you will give us the wisdom to make the proper decisions for this municipality and our residents, and you will give us your grace and your calmness and your comfort as we journey along in the days ahead. And we forever give you the glory, honor, and praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. There's another, some commentary here that I'm going to go ahead and read just for the sake of being thorough. Regarding the virtual information, the governor has declared a state of emergency to exist in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19, aka the coronavirus. The governor also issued Executive Order N 2520, which directs Californians to follow public health directives, including canceling large gatherings. The executive order also allows legislative bodies to hold meetings via conference calls while still meeting state transparency requirements. The public's health and well-being are a top priority for the city of Yuba City, and you are urged to take all appropriate health safety precautions. All right. That is all very true. City Attorney, we report on closed session items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were 4 closed session items. There's no reportable action taken in closed session.
All right, do we have any requests for modifying the agenda and or approval of the agenda? Nothing? Yes.
Let me turn my mic on. Thank you. I would like to request to pull out item number 3 from the consent calendar for discussion.
All right. Done deal. All right. Item number 1, where'd she go? Oh, she's right there. Item 1, discussion and action on measures to mitigate the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. While Diana's coming to the podium, folks, you can email your comments to cityclerk@yubacity.net anytime. Are you able to receive emails right now? Okay.
I did receive one comment from Arthur Rothenstein.
Okay.
He asked if there is closed captioning, and if so, could someone turn that on? And also, what about an interpreter? I let him know that we'll try and get that turned on for the next meeting if we have a virtual meeting.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Diana. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So Fire Chief Alexander and I are here tonight to give you a presentation on the action and measures the city is taking to address the impacts of the coronavirus. So city objectives, maintain critical core services, provide for police, fire, and water and wastewater services at all times, identify safety issues for emergency personnel and city employees, foster and maintain relationships with all cooperators and stakeholders, and decrease the spread of COVID-19. Our cooperation with local partners, the council and staff are engaged, monitoring and responding to current situations as they develop, as well as actively planning for the future, and we remain in close communication and coordination with local partners. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Alexander.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. So the city has activated a Department Operations Center, which the reason behind that DOC is to implement the city's objectives that were outlined in the first slide, with an emphasis on maintaining the core essential services to the community. Every day as part of this DOC, we provide a situation report on that operational period. Some are 24 hours, some are 48. But during that period of time, we're identifying those essential service functions. We have a coordinator for each one of those services, and we analyze where every department is at. Some of the items that are addressed during these situational reports and DOC is some of the action items are tracking and documentation of the amount of time that is dedicated to the coronavirus preparation site, establishing liaisons for schools, skilled nursing facilities, and care homes, identifying key elements to make sure that those core functions are established. One of those is trying to mitigate as much risk as possible to our first responders, so identifying emergency medical dispatching protocols to alert them when we have specific instances that could be of a higher hazard to our first responders. And then each coordinator in the DOC is working on a continuity planning workbook that identifies the worst case scenario. In the event of a loss of 50% of your work staff, what is your plan? Loss of a critical facility, what is your plan? And a loss of inventory or specialized equipment, what is your plan? Because the objective is to make sure that police, fire, water treatment facility, and wastewater treatment facility are constantly working. In addition to that, we're making sure that we're gathering the information and distributing and disseminating that information out as quickly and as accurately as possible.
So in terms of the status of current city facilities and programs, our senior center is closed. Parks and recreation programs have been suspended through April 13th. Fire administration is closed to the public. Fire stations are taking precautions to mitigate risk to first responders. For police records, there's limited public access. And then all non-safety recruitment selection activity has been suspended until further notice. In terms of city business, as the situation progresses, city services will become focused on health and safety functions, which will impact the public access to city facilities as well. And for information, we're recommending that people go to bepreparedsutter.org. We also have information on our website, so www.yubacity.net, and we're strongly encouraging individuals to call the Yuba City Coronavirus Call Center at 530-749-7700. They have a lot of resources and information, not only related to the actual health aspect of the coronavirus, but also resources available to senior citizens, chronically ill, et cetera. So we strongly encourage folks to call that call center. And with that, we are available to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council? No? Just want to thank you, though, Diana, for you and both chiefs and everybody else who's involved. I know you've been working very hard to manage this crisis. It certainly is that. It's a new territory for everybody involved. But as we stick together and focus on core functions to keep everybody safe, and highly encourage folks to follow the recommendations of social distancing and everything else to try to prevent the spread of this so we can all get through this together. Also, rumor control. Some people already have fallen into filling in the blanks on their own. We're doing the best we can to get information out there as often as possible. We will do that again starting tomorrow to try to answer any questions or relay information that may be new to us to get it out to the public on our end. Those three resources right there, I think, are really three very good ones for folks to hopefully pay attention to and utilize before going out on their own. So, comment from Vice Mayor.
Through the mayor, thanks. Kudos to the city staff for their aggressive, and they've been on this for a while. They have not sat back. Citizens out there who are members of our Yuba City family and the employees should know that they are in good hands by their leadership, the police chief, the fire chief, our acting city manager, and the rest of the leadership staff. I think it's appropriate to acknowledge the efforts of Dr. Liu. She's the Bi-County Public Health Officer. She has done, in at least my opinion, a very, very good job of shepherding us through an unprecedented exposure or potential exposure to this corona situation. I also would like to acknowledge what I believe is a much increased relationship between all of the local governmental agencies as we make decisions and press forward with this. That would include both counties and the cities in our region. I think it's, from where I sit anyway, and this was a key component or concern of mine, was regional cooperation in times of need, and it's being displayed out there. So publicly like to acknowledge those folks, electeds and staffs from the neighboring agencies for their assistance to the people here in Yuba City as well. Thank you.
Through the mayor, I just want to thank you both. I wanted to thank you, Mayor, for your first video and sharing the message of our city council, and well done. So I appreciate you doing that, and our executive team. Also, Vice Mayor Boomgarden, I appreciate the fact that you and Supervisor Flores did a combined effort to inform our community, and I have a special thanks to our team for bringing the information in different languages, in Spanish and Punjabi, and then also all these, sign language if we, need to add those. I did have comments I'll share towards the end of when we have an opportunity as a city council to report. But I do urge all those individuals that have contacted myself or any of our council that if you have any concerns or any questions in reference to the coronavirus issues, that please do call that number. The 530-749-7700 is the number that whatever your question or your need is a really good number for you to access to find out or ask those questions, because I've had questions from I don't feel safe going to the grocery store to what's the deal with the toilet paper issue, and from serious issues to very, puzzling issues at the same time. And people asking, why are schools not closing? Why are testing kits not happening, etc. And my response has been the entire time to assure our community that our council is working tirelessly, but really the folks that are doing the majority of the heavy lifting are our executive team, in particular our fire chief, Alexander, and I thank you so much for the tremendous work that you're doing for our community. And it goes without to say that from my short time of serving you as a council member, that I am very pleased that we are working on a bi-county effort to bring a one voice on this particular issue. And because of that, our community is way, way ahead, comparable to other cities and counties in Northern California. And that's why we are demonstrating to you with our social distancing. If you haven't noticed it, we're practicing what we preach. And I thank our team for doing such a wonderful job. And I look forward to sharing on social media accurate and factual with correct information so that you're safe. And when you're safe, I know we are doing the best work for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any, you want to go?
I will just say a real brief comment here. just want to express my thank you to our executive team, Chief, Ms. Langley. Great job so far, and I know this city is in good hands. This council here supports you guys, and I am truly impressed as I was here when the joint message went out between the county and the city at how they're all working together to make sure that we get out the right message, that we're getting out the right information. And I look forward to the way things are working very, very smoothly. And I just want to say thank you. And thank you to our entire city team. I know we're asking a lot of them at this time. And thank you for stepping up to plate. You guys are awesome.
I don't need to repeat it 4 times. I just want to say thank you to our E-team and our city staff for making the citizens of Yuba City a safe place to live. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ma'am, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we received 2 comments. First one is from David Ozera. He states, I saw that the city of Folsom has closed all non-essential facilities. Is the city planning to do anything similar?
We are currently coordinating with Sutter County right now to make sure that, when we shut public facilities, that it's coordinated at the same time. So we've already shut down some of the public facilities in terms of the senior center, access to fire admin, limited access to the police department. And as we evaluate City Hall, we're trying to coordinate with Sutter County to make sure that that's done at the same time so that we have that consistent message.
Okay, the next one is from Arthur Rothenstein. How will mandatory shelter in place impact the city of Yuba City financially? Will there be layoffs due to this? Is there any reason why the city of Yuba City has not posted a tax measure on this last ballot, which could have potentially warded off any financial issues the city may face, given we are one of the lowest sales tax areas compared to Marysville, Sacramento, Chico, etc.? I want to ensure you have the citizens' best interest and not your support, as many politicians tend to do.
The first part of that, repeat that, please.
It says, how will the mandatory shelter in place impact the city of Yuba City financially?
I understand it won't be mandatory. It's going to be what's the proper word, Chief?
An order?
It's order. Yeah, okay. The other stuff, again, this is public comment period, not question and answer. And it's way too early to answer. It would be way too detailed to get into those details. But forgot the person's name. You probably asked the first question too.
Arthur, yes, he did.
Arthur, yeah. Definitely would like to have the conversation with him, but it's way too early to tell the effects. And then, of course, we get down to the revenue measure question. It's not the place right now.
We received one more, just came in from Lauren Halliburton. Will they let people out of jail?
It's not a question we can answer. Let people out of jail. All right. And nothing else?
That's it so far.
All right. I refer the jail question to the sheriff. All right. So we'll go on to the regular meeting for public communication. I'll just read this. So we obviously, this is a virtual meeting, so appearance of interested citizens due to coronavirus, comments are to be provided by email to cityclerk@yubacity.net, and oral comments by phone or in person are currently not available. So folks are welcome and encouraged to participate at the meeting. Public comment is taken on items listed on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda will be considered right now. Comments on controversial items may be limited. And do we have any comments for items not on the agenda?
Yes, we do. We have a presentation from Lauren Halliburton, and she also sent a message saying regarding the letting people out of the jail. She says she didn't ask that.
Okay. But yet the question was, will they let people out of jail?
She said she didn't ask that.
Okay. Who did you receive the question from?
Says Lauren Halliburton.
Okay. Thank you. And who's the presentation you say for public comment?
From Lauren Halliburton. So she said.
This is for the feral cats?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Lauren Halliburton. I will be presenting information on the feral cats located at 1251 Stabler Lane. I would like to thank you in advance for your time and attention to this matter. The colonies that live here have been fed and cared for by many different community members and entities. Yuba City Police Department fed from prior to 2009 until 2015. Community members have been feeding for the last 5 years. In less than a year, 70-plus cats have been trapped and spayed or neutered. 50 of those have been rehomed. Funding for this came from 2 community members involved in the project. Hilbers recently restricted access to the property on February 28th, leaving community members unable to feed or trap the cats. A meeting with Hilbers staff was counterproductive and did not lead to a positive solution. An attempt to gain help from Sutter County Animal Services was unsuccessful as well. The desired outcome of this presentation is that Sutter County Animal Services, in conjunction with volunteers, will immediately and aggressively move towards the acceptable practice of TNR throughout our community by accounting for feral cat colonies in our community with the use of social media and volunteer groups or individuals. Develop a plan agreeable to all parties to trap, spay and neuter, and rehome 100-plus cats from 1251 Stabler Lane in a reasonable time frame. Current management of the shelter is alarming. There's no community connection, no social media, no community education, no foster program, no TNR program or volunteers. Meetings with Diana and Megan, the initial phone call resulted in a very negative impression of shelter staff. The need for social media, TNR, and foster programs were presented in 2017. The meeting results were somewhat positive, but completely unproductive. In 3 years, none of these programs have been implemented. The flawed fostering program. Becoming a volunteer for the shelter is time-consuming and costly to the city. Fingerprints and a home check are not required by any other organization. There's no support in the way of formula, food, or litter, but you can keep a kitten from every litter you foster. This is the direct opposite of how a foster program should operate. When questioned about her solution to kill 100-plus cats, interim shelter manager said, "I don't need to look good. I'm already doing good. I'm doing my part. It's not my job." Policies change depending on the person and the situation. Megan will intake and alter a feral cat, who will then be adopted out free of charge and released back into the community. This is TNR. Other times she gives an ultimatum and will hold a cat for an hour while threatening to euthanize it if a rescue doesn't pick it up in time. Relaying these events has the potential to significantly hamper my efforts and the efforts of this group. In rescuing cats, we must deal with Megan as the acting interim supervisor. Realistically, she is not providing any assistance to the group, rather complicating matters that, per policy, she should not be involved in. The possibility of Field Haven, a local non-for-profit, helping the group is no longer a reality because of Megan's demeanor, comments, and inability to help her community in a professional manner. SASA board members and advisory committee. The most productive board had consistent representation. A past council member sat on this board for 6+ years. Current members who sit on the board are rotating annually. Board meeting minutes have not been updated on the city's webpage since June of 2019. The annual report is very vague and lacking information about animals taken in, released, and euthanized. The intakes released and euthanized don't add up. There are 589 animals that are unaccounted for. I'll let you answer the questions. Where did they go? The 2019 report indicates our shelter had a 60% live release rate. The live release rate standard for a shelter that does not take in feral cats is 90%. We fell 30% short. Residents who have contacted the shelter for help with feral cats have been advised to trap the cats and dump them a mile from their residence, making the cats someone else's problem or leaving them to fend for themselves in the middle of nowhere. This is unacceptable. They've also been told to return abandoned kittens to a taped-up box and leave them back in a park where they were found. This is unacceptable. Abatement of 100 cats and kittens is unacceptable. Abatement of 1 cat or kitten is unacceptable. The big picture. There are as many as 6,000 feral cats living in Yuba City. Abatement is not the solution. The shelter has not worked with the community to try and solve the problem humanely. Shelter management has not addressed the governing board with this issue. Not only is abatement inhumane, but it is not an effective method to control cat populations. It is more expensive than TNR, and taxpayer dollars are being misused. Our shelter does not take in feral cats per shelter policy. The community has been fundraising and solving this problem on their own with no support from Sutter County Animal Services. Feeders and trappers have spent a significant amount of time and money caring for these cats and finding a solution to this problem. They sought guidance and help from Field Haven, who backed out after strong resistance from Sutter County Animal Services to work with the group. Once again, the desired outcome is that Sutter County Animal Services, in conjunction with volunteers, will immediately and aggressively move toward the acceptable practice of TNR throughout our community. Thank you for your time.
All right, I'm assuming Lauren is watching right now. Thank you very much for the presentation. Clearly put a lot of effort into that. We appreciate your opinion. This is a classic example, I think, of there being two, maybe even three or four different sides to every issue. And the conversation, of course, needs to continue, but in person. Be happy to meet with you or talk further, and we'll go on from there. But again, thank you for the presentation, and just know that we have heard it and listened to it. Anything else further for public comment?
Nothing's been received.
All right.
Mayor, can I just make one clarification on that presentation?
Yes, you may.
The Diana that she's referring to is a former employee.
Yes. Yeah. Good though, but all right. All right, so we will go, do we need public? We don't need public, that was public comment. Consent calendar, all matters listed on our consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time that council votes on one motion unless members of the city council, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. We do have a request to remove item number 3, so moved. And I will entertain a motion for items to approve 2 and 4, unless there's any public comment on the consent calendar.
Through the mayor,
Yes.
make consent calendar.
One second. Do we have any public comment on consent calendar items?
No, we don't.
Okay, go ahead, Manny.
Through the mayor, I'd like to make a recommendation of the consent calendar for item number 2 and 4.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, item number 3. Grace.
Through the mayor, I am just simply asking for an extension on the closing of the initial application date, which is March 31st, considering the coronavirus and all of these other issues that we are facing.
All right, do you have a suggested extension?
When do we begin the budget process, Diana? Just trying to coordinate around that to help.
The budget subcommittee meetings are scheduled for April 3rd, 9th, and 10th. And then we have our first budget workshop towards the end of May, but finance will have to have the draft budget prepared a couple weeks in advance of that.
So 3rd, 9th, and 10th?
Of April, yes, for
April.
the budget subcommittee meetings.
So would it be appropriate to request, I know from the 31st to the 3rd doesn't seem a whole lot, perhaps the 9th, because the meeting would be able to meet then, or to say April 8th, because the meeting would be on the 9th or the 10th?
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Espandola, just a clarification. Are you talking about the items that would be separately identified through the budgetary process, or are you talking about the quarterly ones? Because there's two different ones there, and that's what I was trying to.
Councilman Shaw, I was reading in the analysis section of the report, and in the analysis, it states the initial application is due date will be March 31st. So the initial application, and then we have in here the approval process, and the quarterly, there was no defined date for the quarterly ones.
Right, and that's why I was kind of curious on that myself, because with going to a quarterly rotation with an allocation, it seems like they would naturally be able to apply quarterly. And my thinking, being on the budget subcommittee, is if we have the allotment and we're talking about the quarterly allotment, then we could give them an opportunity to clear through middle of June, 1st of July, basically the beginning of that quarter to do that. If we're talking about the long-standing ones, that's where I was kind of confused, which ones we were talking about.
Yeah, the long-standing ones, we have an agreement. It's going to go through the budget process, which is, April 3rd, 9th, 10th, and the other workshop. I'm good with that. I'm talking about, so maybe the initial application date does not need to be included for March 31st for the first quarter, or unless we're thinking the first quarter in June sometime, like you're suggesting. That's the only clarification I was asking on this particular piece.
Okay, and that I would, Mr. Mayor, I would probably offer up that if we're talking about the quarterly allotment, that the applications are due by the first day of the quarter, that we would be, for that allotment. So that means that basically our first allotment would be July 1. That's when they would be due, and they have plenty of time in the light of all the recent events.
Well, let me read this one section so that there's clarity to my question, okay? It says that the city manager's office will send out notification to interested organizations annually in February and March. The applications will be accepted, and I apologize, I have a mint in my mouth, for funding for the next fiscal year, July 1st through the 30th of each year. The initial application due date will be March 31st for consideration as part of the annual budget. So the applications will be reviewed by staff for completeness and eligibility. Applicants will also be accepted through the year. Applications will also be accepted throughout this year for council's consideration. So it sounds to me, now that I'm reading it again, it's that annual one. We're wanting them by the 31st for the annual ones, and then additional ones for the quarterly.
Right. And, we kind of know what those long-standing ones are, and in the light of the COVID-19 event that's going on, I would be fine as part of that subcommittee, even going through the middle of April for them to submit, because we kind of know what they are, what we as a council have already identified as the long-standing things, which we know that the summer stroll and those Christmas stroll is
Right.
Ideally ones of those. So I would have no problem in extending that deadline even while the subcommittee's working. Have we had any of those applications turned in yet?
I've only received one so far.
Okay.
We have sent out notices already to everybody.
Everybody I could think of.
Been contacted, okay.
Okay. I'm flexible with whichever, because I think we've got an understanding as a council what we meant by long-standing, and the quarterlies. I think, just for a point of a clarification, that those requests need to be in by the first day of that quarter would be my suggestion, just so there's a finite time.
For the quarterly, okay.
They all come back to all of us anyway.
Yeah.
Those.
I would be, as long as it doesn't hold up our process, that's what I was asking. So if we look towards April, mid of April, because we know that they have a long-standing relationship with us, and we're still in that process. Okay.
Those folks are long-standing, they know pretty much the routine, they've already been contacted, hopefully they're paying attention, even right now. So we should be okay. But give them a little bit more leeway.
I'm just asking for a little bit more time for them.
All right, so you have a calendar in front of you, a date in
Yeah.
April?
Well, tax day is April 15th. It might be extended, so we could add it to that date.
April 15th?
Is that a Friday?
That's actually a Wednesday. Since most of them already know, I would actually offer April 7th, give them an extra week past the initial deadline. And that way, as the subcommittee is working through it, we know that what we were thinking kind of lines up with them before we finish up on the 10th, before it comes back to the main council. So I would say the 7th.
Yeah, I was
be a good
open to
day.
the 8th or the 7th, what have you. I just don't want them to miss out on this opportunity because their priority right now may be on their business or the health of their own family, so, or of others.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think the 7th would be good, and then I think this council can be very flexible with that, so.
I hope we would be, okay. I would be in agreement with the 7th and also knowing that there's flexibility in that. Okay?
All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
just a clarification, this is a one-time date change to allow for the coronavirus and that the policy as written would continue to apply in future years. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right. And we need a motion.
So I motion that, that the date would be a temporary for this year because of the coronavirus to extend the initial application due date from March, to change it from March 31st to April 7th.
All right. I can second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Thank you very much, Grace. Moving on to business items, consideration of adoption of a resolution approving an agreement for employment of interim city manager with Diana Langley, presented by me. Do we have any public comment on the item?
None received?
All right. We can read the initial part of the staff report here. Of course, it's no secret that Diana is doing an outstanding job, always has been, always will, is doing so exactly right now with her, through her leadership. But just for some background for some folks, Mrs. Langley served as an interim city manager from February 15th of 19 to September 3rd of 19 after the previous city manager had retired. Since that time, she has been serving as the acting city manager when the city manager is absent or otherwise unavailable. She also did so before that. Ms. Langley was an outstanding interim city manager, providing stability and leadership to the organization and council, and has performed well as an acting city manager. Ms. Langley has agreed to serve as interim city manager until the process to hire a permanent city manager is completed. We did appoint her as interim city manager during our special meeting on March 12th. And she's currently serving as a public works director and is employed under an agreement with the city dated February 4th of 2020. So I think the choice is clear. We've made that decision. She's serving in that capacity, very enjoys the confidence, respect, and support of all city staff, including, I believe, all of our council members. So I would entertain any comments or to that regard, if any, or a motion even.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Before you move, Vice Mayor, may I? Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that our acting as we move into the accepting or going through this, Diana, that you have been a person of high standard, integrity, and leadership that our city needs the most right now. And we are, I am very thankful and realize the quality of who you are. And I have heard from community, from previous other city folks or in other professions and within your professions, and your name carries tremendous, tremendous integrity and respect for the work that you do. So we are in a very strong position to have you as our acting city manager. So I fully am supportive of that.
Well said. Thank you. Sir?
Through the mayor, I'd like to move that council adopt a resolution approving the agreement for employment of interim city manager between Diana Langley and the city of Yuba City.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. All right. Item number 6, use permit ordinance amendment, presented by Ben Moody. Welcome, Ben.
All right, thank you.
Look healthy.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. No, you know, I blew it this morning. I had a green tie and a green shirt put out, and I walked right past it. Yeah, I don't know if that counts, but we'll go with it. The item before you is very familiar. It's been before the City Council twice and the Planning Commission is regards to the second reading of a proposed update to the municipal code to provide City Council an option for the direct review of use permits by amending the Yuba City Municipal Code. City Council has provided past direction. They would like to have that option in their toolbox in order to, for a variety of reasons, to streamline or due to community engagement, to have that ability to have direct review. And so the proposed ordinance before you will provide that. And so through this process, this is the second reading. And with that, this will be the final consideration and adoption of the ordinance. And so with that, staff is recommending you consider and adopt an ordinance update that will amend the Yuba City Municipal Code to allow for direct City Council review of use permits by amending sections 8.5.7001 and 8-5.7003 of Article 70 of Chapter 5 of Title 8 and Section 8, 5.7101 of Article 71 of Chapter 5 of Title 8 and waive the second reading. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for now from council? Any public comment on the item, ma'am?
None received.
All right. Entertain a motion.
Through the mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we adopt an ordinance update that will amend the Yuba City Municipal Code to allow for direct city council review of use permits by amending sections 8-5.7001 and 8-5.7003 of Article 70 of Chapter 5 of Title 8 and Section 8-5.7101 of Article 71 of Chapter 5 and of Title 8 and waive the second reading.
Second that.
All right. Have a first and a second to approve staff's recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
Aye.
And 4-1. Thank you very much. Moving on to number 8, reduction of development impact fees and adoption of an overhead utility policy, presented by Daniel Langley.
We're on number 7.
Did I skip number 7? I certainly did. My apologies. Number 7, systemic safety analysis award.
Yes, and it's as exciting as it sounds. So the purpose of this item is to help the city identify safety projects for various arterials and collectors that have a history of collisions resulting in severe injury or death. So there's a table up here with a list of corridors that this consultant will be analyzing. So you have portions of Bridge Street, Butte House Road, Clark Avenue, Franklin Road, Gray Avenue, Market Street, Plymouth Street, Walton Avenue, and El Margarita Road. The California Department of Transportation Division of Local Assistance has allocated funding for the city to produce a systemic safety analysis report. One requirement for the allocated state funds is a 10% local match. The city issued a request for proposals on January 17th, 2020, and the deadline for submittals was February 14th, 2020. The city received 6 proposals to develop the report. A selection committee of engineering staff evaluated each submittal based on guidelines established by the Department of Transportation. TJKM Transportation Consultants submitted the top-ranked proposal. And so the projects identified in this report will be used to leverage future Highway Safety Improvement Program funding. So the fiscal impact is $139,696.09 to be awarded, broken down $125,726.48 of state funds and $13,969.61 of local funds to be funded through CIP account 921244. The recommendation before you is to adopt a resolution awarding the development of a systemic safety analysis report to TJKM Transportation Consultants of Pleasanton, California, in the amount of $139,696.09 with the finding that is in the best interest of the city. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Done? Grace, are you familiar with item number 7? It's question time if you happen to have any.
We are going super fast. Thank you. No, I don't. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Gentlemen, nothing? All right. Next step would be approval. Next step. I think I saw her shake no already. Any public comment?
None received.
Okay.
Okay, through the mayor, I'd like to introduce, or I'd like to move that we adopt a resolution awarding the development of Systemic Safety Analysis Report to TJKM Transportation Consultants of Pleasanton, California, in the amount of $139,696.09, subject to material terms, with the finding that it is in the best interest of the city.
Second.
3
I
seconds.
thought I
Good.
thought I add my.
You haven't seconded yet, so
Thank
put
you.
the grace down.
Thank
on
you
record
for
as having
acknowledging that,
seconded.
Mayor. I appreciate that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you, Diana. Now, number 8, reduction of development impact fees and adoption of overhead utility policy.
Okay. Ben Moody and I are going to share this presentation tonight. So for some background, on December 2nd, 2019, the City Council conducted a special workshop related to the city's development impact fees. And from that workshop, there was a recommendation to bring back to council on December 19th, and council approved to freeze impact fees at the current level, and then to also create an ad hoc committee. So the ad hoc committee is comprised of Vice Mayor Boomgarden and Councilman Shaw. We were also very appreciative to have 4 members of the building and development community: Holly Shackelford of Inner West Homes, Kurt Hilbers of Hilbers Inc., Charlie Bates of Hometown Lenders, and Sean Menard of MHM, a local engineering company. And then staff included Mr. Moody and myself. Discussion items, the intent was to take the approach of identifying short-term items, mid-term items, and long-term items. And so we discussed undergrounding of overhead utilities, development fees, infill development fees, and infrastructure financing. So in relation to the undergrounding of overhead utilities, we actually developed a map that showed all of the existing overhead utilities within the city. For the development fees, we reviewed a summary of development fees of not only from the city, but outside agencies as well. For the infill development fees, we mapped all of the existing city water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure, roadways that would need to be widened per the general plan, and looked at existing parks. And then we compared those to the previously designated infill area. And then finally, infrastructure financing, where we looked at some different programs, including the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, which is the iBank, Statewide Community Infrastructure Program, which is SCIP, and bond opportunities for land development, which is the BOLD program. From that, 2 short-term objectives were identified: to reduce the city's development impact fees and to create an overhead utility policy. So I'm going to cover the recommendation to reduce the city's impact fees, and then Ben will come in and discuss the creation of an overhead utility policy. So the recommendation is to reduce the city's impact fees, including the pipeline portion of the water and wastewater connection fees and extension fees throughout the existing city limits to match the currently adopted infill impact fees. And they came to this conclusion after reviewing the limits of existing infrastructure, comparing that to the existing infill area, and then comparing that to the existing city limits. What you found is that much of the city already has some type of infrastructure. There was discussion of doing a tiered system, but then after discussing the tiered system, there were some benefits of that, but then there was a lot of complications associated with that. And so the ad hoc committee then recommended, well, let's go ahead and just reduce the impact fees across the board within the entire city limits. So here's the table of the existing development impact fees, the infill impact fees broken down by land use. So the infill impact fees are half of the development impact fees for the residential and commercial uses, slightly less for office uses, and the same for industrial uses. So when the impact fees were adopted in 2007, council did not increase the industrial impact fees, and they reduced the road portion of the office category of fees. And so as a result of the industrial impact fees already being reduced citywide, when determining an infill impact fee, it was decided that no additional fee reduction was required, with the exception of the pipeline portion of the water and wastewater connection fees. For the office category, since the road portion was already discounted 50%, when calculating the infill impact fee, it was decided that a reduction in the general facilities and pipeline portion of the water and wastewater connection fees would apply. It should also be noted that these impact fees do not include the current flood fee or levy fee. That has been identified as a middle item to address with the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency. In regard to water connection fees, so water connection fees are broken down 80.6% treatment, 19.4% pipeline. So the 50% reduction would apply to the 19.4%. In regard to the water extension fees, it would be a 50% reduction. And so water extension fees are typically when you have your smaller streets, so they're separate from pipelines identified in the master plans, that when properties come in, they would pay for their share of the pipeline just fronting their property. And so that's the difference between water extension fees and water connection fees is the pipeline portion and the water connection fees are master plan lines. Similarly, with the wastewater connection fees, the treatment portion is 60%, the pipeline portion is 40%, so the 50% reduction would apply to the 40% pipeline portion. And then again, with the extension fees, the recommendation would be to cut those in half. So before I move on to the overhead utility policy, are there any questions related to the impact fees?
Can you clarify the definition of the pipeline portion?
Yes. So when we are calculating wastewater or water connection fees, there's two components. You have the treatment plants in which you're sizing the treatment plants to serve your entire community. And so in this situation, you oversize your plants so that you have room for growth. And so you charge a connection fee to get reimbursed for that capital outlay that you put in to make sure that you had the capacity. You also have trunk lines. So in the situation of the water distribution system, you have large trunk lines. With the wastewater collection system, you have large backbone infrastructure that collects the wastewater or distributes the water. Those are determined through the master plans, and therefore we do a pipeline portion of the connection fee because it applies to the entire city. It's collecting, they're collecting or distributing water to the entire city as it is the backbone infrastructure, versus the extension fee is very limited to the actual frontage along the roadway if the pipeline's not included in a master plan.
So it's it's well beyond just the main versus the lateral.
Correct.
Okay.
So the lateral is the actual service to the home itself.
Okay, so that's all included in this, we call the connection fee?
No, the lateral is paid for by the property owner, and so the lateral cost is not included in any city fees.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any public comment?
None received?
All right, Grace?
Thank you for outlining that. It's and thank you for our ad hoc committee. I just had a couple of questions. In the selection of the members for the ad hoc committee, besides our two council members, how was it determined that these individuals were selected? How did we solicit individuals to participate in the committee that formulated this?
Through the mayor, I can answer that. Back at the meeting when we had it for the open public, the comment was made that we wouldn't be back for a year. And I said, give me a committee, we'll have something back in a couple of months. Let me handpick people that would go on it from all areas. And so that was a collaborative effort. I consulted with my colleague, and we thought we were getting a good cross-section of people that were in our community that built commercial, residential. And when we're looking at things, it's not only just from the developer side, but we're taking it from development all the way to how you put people in. That's why we had Mr. Bates there, who is a lender, so that decisions that are made on the front end will affect how affordable it is on the back end. And one of the criteria that I set myself was I did not want specific projects before us. We're trying to fix this for the entire city, and I needed people at the table that would come together with the community's best interest at heart first. And I really think we achieved that with the people that were there.
Yes, these are common known realtors or builders or finance. I think I would have liked for consumers maybe to be in that. It's too late to pass to say that, but I'm saying it. Consumers, people that buy the properties or buy the products that are developed through this. Lenders, have significant incentives sometimes when they're lending for folks. And some of the individuals on this group, have existing projects that they're trying to move forward through our planning and through our council. So I would have liked a consumer, perhaps. I would have liked someone from EDC because they're economic development in that piece, and maybe just one more, a different realtor on there, an additional, not different, let me correct myself, an additional realtor on there. And I know that these individuals are very committed and have done a lot of great work in our community, but I would have hoped that we would expand it just a few more committee members to that ad hoc committee itself, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of the buyer, the consumer, because hopefully when they build, someone's going to want to buy what they built, or is it, residential, is it commercial? So that was my question to you. So was there any consideration to adding any of these individuals?
To address that, some of those people you mentioned, really, it's inappropriate for them to be at the table because from the consumer standpoint, we're trying to deal with the development through the lending of how to get them in. It's not a matter of if they would buy it or not. We're looking at things such as real median income, what is the lending power, how by doing some fees on this end will affect the purchase power on the other end. It's not so much would they like the project or not because there's no project in it. We're looking at things in a hypothetical world. And I will tell you now, everyone that came to that table had no personal interest in anything except how do we address moving this city forward. I can't see really with what we're addressing, what else we could have brought to the table at this time to get to really the right answers, because this wasn't project driven. It was about the fees and how it affects from getting people interested in our community to getting someone in a multifamily or a single family or a business of some sorts in this community. So,
No, I'm not disagreeing about the intent of the ad hoc. I fully am aware of that. I think it was very clear that it was reference to reviewing the impact fees, because was creating a major challenge for development in the city. It hasn't happened. I'm just the aspect of community members or committee members as we look at if we in future add memberships to these. And I know some people will volunteer because they're just good about that, and I appreciate that. I was just asking about the consideration that, these other consumers, EDC, and another realtor perhaps, just to get a variance of views as we discuss the potential as developers, because developers are going to need people to buy what they develop. So that was my very simple way of thinking it, so.
All right, thank you. Sir, do you have a comment?
I think I do. I just want to assure the councilwoman that I echo Councilman Shaw's. I don't think anybody came to the table, and I don't think you're suggesting that they did. These folks, and I was consulted in regards to the selection process, so I shared this burden as well of picking people who we felt were going to come to the table with history, with expertise, who develop in other communities so that they could bring that aspect into this meeting. They know the pressure points and things that they're doing, and the tips and the tricks that other municipalities are. I think I understand your concern in regards to having a consumer in there, but I guess I felt like I can represent the consumer in an ad hoc committee, that we didn't want to overburden with a lot of process. We wanted to get some stuff done for you and the other members of the council to consider and implement in a rapid fashion. So I don't know really what the EDC would have to offer. I can understand that you have that concern there. Another realtor, I think we had two in the room. I don't know how many more we would need. We have a commercial and residential developer in Kurt Hilbers, and we have another residential developer in Interwest. I think they were well represented and communicated, at least to myself, effectively of what the pressure points that the folks that were trying to buy a home here were feeling. So.
And I appreciate that. I'm just, the idea of having an inclusive group, and you've done the diligence to do what you did, and I appreciate that. I do think that EDC has a role in our economic development, in particular with the infrastructure issues perhaps, and some of these fees tie into that, and planning for regions. They also have a vision of, regional work. And so just another perspective to have in the conversation. That's perhaps where my thought process was coming from, the EDC. Now, the consumer, I'm always very considerate of individuals. Maybe it's because my humble means, and many of us from the diocese came from very humble means. I do not mean to misrepresent any of you, but I consider the fact that many individuals are having a challenging time in purchasing homes because the value of what they can afford and the desire of having their own home is very tough to reach. And as we look towards development, I hope that we can build some of those affordable housing, and that's where I'm thinking of as consumer connection. Even the Housing Authority could have been a representative as a consumer for a segment of our community. And I appreciate that, Vice Mayor, you're able to duly consider that as you're having these conversations. And maybe I'm going too far deep into the woods or the weeds at the moment, but this all ties back to developmental fees and the impact, and looking at a reduction to stimulate the growth in our community. And so I just hope that by reducing, this is a recommendation, reducing it to the infill, which is a 50% reduction of the many areas of those impact fees, that I really hope some development occurs. Because we're with this coronavirus situation at this moment, and we will pass this, and I hope that some of those individuals end up developing some homes that are going to be affordable for community members to purchase locally, and not only consider folks, becoming a suburb of other communities.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate what you're saying, and I can assure you, as a person who was at every meeting for every minute of it, that the subject of affordable housing was on the table and discussed thoroughly. And that was probably the primary discussion when it became talking about residential development, is how do we become affordable so somebody can buy a home here, our typical home buyer, if you will. And so I do think that, like I said, I'd like to assure you that lower income, if you will, middle income, and whatever the higher income, whatever those strata are, were definitely discussed.
Good, I appreciate that, Vice Mayor. I would hope that, I know that you're always considering everyone, but I just like to bring it up in case it was, in the conversation. The time frame for this, are we considering this to be a change in the ordinance for a long period of time? Are we hoping to do this for 2 years? And then revisit these impact fees, and let's say all of a sudden the economy goes great, and I don't want our city to miss out on any potential revenue funds. So I'm just exploring all our options at this moment.
Again, you raise a great question. I think that the current situation with COVID-19, coronavirus, is definitely throwing not only a curveball, but probably a knuckleball at this effort. But I think probably a person that can address a good portion of what's going to happen with the process of the AB 1600 study, et cetera, would be our interim city manager.
Right, so this is the short-term objective. The midterm objective is to meet with the school districts, meet with Sutter County, and meet with Sabifka to discuss their fees. And then the long-term objective is to update our AB 1600 study, our impact fee study. If you look at the current AB 1600 study, there's a lot of facilities identified in there that may not be necessary to serve the full build-out of the general plan. And so that process would be to go through, revisit those, and hopefully it would result in a reduction of the impact fees. So with that said, It's not like tomorrow we're going to all of a sudden have 100 building permits pulled. In terms of finished lots, there aren't a lot of finished lots within the city. So in order to move forward, a developer is going to need to come in and actually construct a subdivision. And so we have some approved tentative maps, we have some tentative maps in process, and they would need to record the maps, get a contractor on board to build the subdivisions before they could even then talk about building homes. And so realistically, you're probably looking at 18 months to 2 years before you really see a lot of development occurring that this could create the impetus for that development going forward.
And that's not taken into account, and I'm sorry, my back is towards you, but into account the coronavirus at this moment and the delays that could impact that, or?
It's not, but if you look at, the amount of time to either record a map or to get everything together to be able to proceed with the map, get the bids from the contractors, it'd be a short window anyway to start construction in this calendar year, even though we're in March. But by the time they put all of that in place, you're really talking more of next year to actually build the subdivision, which would be late 2021, perhaps before they could actually pull building permits for a home. And so you would have homes being constructed, at late 2021, early 2022. So the coronavirus isn't necessarily impacting this from the standpoint of it was already a very contracted schedule just based upon where we are in the year right now and the steps that developers will need to take to get their projects to a point that they could pull building permits.
Okay. Thank you.
Through the mayor, I would like to add as well that the impetus try to spit it out here. The impetus behind getting this thing going was to generate some interest. It was clear from the development community, you sat in the same meeting I sat in, is that Yuba City wasn't necessarily open for business when it came to development. These are small steps in anticipation of even bigger steps going forward to generate some interest. And we think we have accomplished that through the feedback that we've received, not only from the folks in the ad hoc committee, but other builders and developers who seem to be, okay, this city's actually doing something here, and they're taking a look at what it's going to take to generate some interest so that we can get some development in here, which should help us economically down the road as well.
Right. Through the mayor.
Sure.
My sentiments exactly. At this point, until the city does something, there is no interest in Yuba City. So part of what we did at that table was broke it down with what do we control and what do we not control. And so we've addressed the things that we control by making sure that we're taking care of the city in the interim, but yet doing something to get things moving. We look at our housing starts. They've been basically between 30 and 35 for the past several years when everything else around us has been developing. There was a time 10 years ago that we were having 800 to 1,000 housing starts a year. Then we had the little housing crash, but then other things started building. But because we were so focused, and I remember the comment very clearly back in January when we had just came onto the council where we were talking about this, and our former city manager said, I want to remind the council, you can do whatever you want to with impact fees. We'll just raise service fees. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's counterproductive here. Just since we as a council met back in December and started this, there has been a buzz. I've been approached a couple of different times with people going, hey, when are you guys going to get things going? We're back interested in Yuba City. I've got people that are looking at Yuba City. Right now, the best way to describe it is we got high fees and we're getting 100% of zero. So we don't have an income stream. And with this, we have the opportunity to spark economic growth, get all housing here, trying to encourage them to develop affordable housing. But in short, we need all housing to make our economy grow. And with that, we got to fix it for everyone, not a single project, not one here and one there. And these were things that we specifically looked at was how do we fix this at the city level? And then the next phase, as Ms. Langley says, is we're hoping that our local partners will come on board and see the benefit of doing what is productive to be open for business to get growth going, because there are a lot of fees that are controlled by the school, that are controlled by the county, that we have no control over, that we've sat here in these chambers and the workshop and heard from developers going, it just prices us out. We can't make 0.5% on a project, or we're losing money on a project, so therefore we can't even build anything. So we're trying to get to a point to where the developers and the builders can build that affordable housing, and we can get the economic engine going, because I've heard from a lot of people that they want certain things here in our community. Well, when they look at certain things that they want, as far as retail businesses and restaurants and even manufacturers and things to look at us, they start looking at things like single-family residences, median family income, education, all these different things coming together. And if we're not growing, we don't have the right number of houses, we can't get them. If we don't have the median income, we don't get them. That's why we've got to have housing across all spectrums. We have to absolutely take care of our affordable housing, but we also have to have the people that we're trying to relocate here from Paradise that were doctors and such with Adventist that couldn't find housing here. They need a different type of house. They also raise our median income, which helps attract the businesses. So this is a big economic engine, and the goal of this ad hoc committee was to think outside of the box and come back with something that would spark the interest, spark this growing, knowing that we're probably 12 to 18 months from something really grabbing a hold, but it's because it's been stagnant for 8-9 years.
And through the mayor, I mean, just in final comments from myself, that I completely understand why we need to do this. In this decisions, I'm very strong in areas of other communities to be, you know, some of those that are not always considered to be part of that conversation. And so I'll bring that forward if I'm not on the ad hoc committee, and I'm sure I would ask you the same to do if I am on an ad hoc and I'm missing something. I would certainly love to hear that feedback and input from any of you up here. But it makes perfect sense. The infill fees are 50% less than what our current impact fees are. So I hope that this decision, that if we all agree to do this, and it may seem that we're heading that way, that we get something going as soon as the coronavirus settles and things happen. And I've heard from many elderly community members who like to downsize, but can't downsize because there's not housing available for them to downsize, and they want to stay in this community and need to move to other parts of Roseville or Rockland, other parts of the areas, because of availability to purchase the type of home that they want. So I'm looking at it from all spectrums of consumers as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Diane. I did have one question regarding the impact fees on the different residential, we have big duplexes up there. We've had conversation before about some type of fee structure for ADUs. Is that reflected in there, or do we have the results of that?
Yeah, I'll let Ben answer that question.
All right.
And then Ben's going to follow up with the presentation on the overhead utility policy.
Yes, thank you. I would have forgotten and asked for a motion if you hadn't said that.
All right, this is exciting stuff for me with my engineer hat on. This has been great stuff, and I think great stuff for the community here. Regarding ADUs, I just read the staff report that we passed. It was back in June, I believe, as far as the impact fees. And so in June, this council basically waived the impact fee cost for ADUs. And ADU, right now, the state law keeps changing on those and the definition of those, but predominantly it's in residential zones where residential is allowed, and some mixed-use commercial. It needs to be less than 50% of the primary home and not to exceed 1,200 square feet. And so with that definition, we waive that impact fee for them. But with that consideration in June with the city council, there's an option to reevaluate that with the AB 1600 study going forward. So when we do that AB 1600 study and we'll set up a scope and a criteria to look at that, if that changes the density of our city and how that impacts it, if we need to include that and figure out a designated amount.
All right, thank you.
All right, so on to overhead utility policy. Okay, so this is one of my favorite things to talk about here. It's been a thorn in my side for years here, and definitely I guess to start for me, it's a new time with PG&E and the cost of construction. This has been a major burden over after the recession on just how to implement projects and coordinate with the utility companies and construction and how to, and the timing and just to make things work. And so through this development ad hoc committee, we took a look at our policy, which the current policy was to underground all existing overhead utilities with development on the property frontages. So if you bought a property where the lines were on the north side of the road, that property would be solely responsible for the underground with the development compared to another property. And so that's led to different issues. So currently has been a standard policy that when projects are seeking entitlement, the city conditions the project to require that existing overhead utilities, power and telecommunications, be placed underground adjacent to the development frontage. In the early 2000s, the cost was substantially less and coordination with utilities was quicker and easier. I have a picture up here for reference. It's on Bridge Street in front of Carriage Square. And this was a rather simple underground. It had one dead-end power line with no telecommunications on it. And even in this simple case, it turned into a major deal where at the end, it was a time crunch to try to get that removed and up in time to coordinate with the development and at a substantial cost also. So the proposed utility policy that's been attached to the staff report, it basically provides options to address existing overhead utilities and establish a base cost for allowable improvements. The proposed policy provides options to developers, which is very beneficial due to the highly variable site conditions. So one of the things that we struggle with is every site is a little bit different, where power poles have service lines that service existing homes across the street, what that effort will be to cross the road, different equipment, and where those poles are at, if they need to be relocated to a certain spot, or how they're support poles for different adjacent utilities. And so it gets really complicated, and every site is a lot different. And so it's not where you could just kind of come up with a generic number that this site's going to cost so much a square foot versus the other side. Each site is different, as I talked. And so with this, we proposed, did I jump forward one slide? Okay, so doesn't match my my staples here. So what I have here is the undergrounding of all existing overhead utilities, the impacts. It's high expense. It's basically the private side is budgeting $850 a lineal foot to $1,100 a lineal foot. There's long and unknown time delays, as discussed, and a benefit of it, it does provide a clean, attractive appearance that reduces visual blight, which has been the primary reasoning in the past. It hasn't really been a safety issue. It was really that with development, what's clean up, what's make it look nice, what's meet current standards, and is the original reason for it being there. So with this new policy, we're basically proposing to give you the developer options. So existing overhead utilities, there's going to be an option where you could relocate the poles facilities to meet the roadway design standards, be outside the sidewalk in that planter strip, provide complementary shielding or landscaping, bundling equipment, and other aesthetic or structural enhancements, or the payment of an in lieu cost. So, and then with new utilities, so anything with the development, they would still have to provide new underground services to that. So if you had a new bank come in, you wouldn't string a new overhead service to to that power box, you would basically have to have an underground service to the new facility. So even though if you had existing utilities on the frontage road, anything new there wouldn't be allowed any new poles or new equipment being overhead. And so here's just a few visual pictures of some potential development sites that have been around. On the lower left corner, you have oh my goodness. There we go. So in the lower left corner here, we have Sanborn Road, and we have a potential area for future development that's zoned residential development in our sphere of influence. This is a real nasty area because you basically have existing power poles that are servicing homes on the east side of the road. And so in order to underground those, you would have to either put new poles on the east side of the road, so underground plus add new poles where the services come up and string to the homeowners, or you would have to individually update every home's electrical service, which gets complicated, to say the least, and expensive. You have B Street and Shasta, just east of Shasta. A lot of telecommunications, those dark lines on the bottom are fiber, and then you have the power up top. A lot of these poles, they crisscross at the intersections. So it's hard to just go, you can't just say put one underground because it affects the pole to each side of it, and there are also support poles for others. So a lot of times when we say put this pole underground, if you own this property, what happens is they have to put a new pole over here and string more equipment over there, and it gets ugly and complicated. So with this new policy, it comes down to where we're establishing a minimum improvement cost that the developer will need to do besides undergrounding. So we came up with a cost that was reasonable based on what we were seeing and hearing from development engineers and development in the community, of a baseline of approximately $850 per lineal foot for the property frontage that has the utilities on it. And then with that, we're going to take a 25% value of that undergrounding cost and set that as the base minimum that the developer will need to do to improve their site. And so through that, there's qualifying expenses where they could relocate poles to a better location so they're outside of the sidewalk. They could put the complementary landscaping, walls, bundle equipment, maybe underground certain portions of the telecommunication or crossings across the road. And so any of those qualifying expenses would go towards that 25% amount. And then additionally, on the third point there's a payment of an in lieu amount for the required improvement cost to the city for discretionary use towards utility undergrounding, relocating at priority locations. So the intent with this is that if the developer chooses, for a variety of reasons, if it's a small development or the timing, phasing, or if we want to coordinate it with a larger project, there's an option where a portion of that 25%, if they don't put qualifying expenses towards their project, that 25% value, up to that 25% value will come to the city. Then the city would then use that in a fund at council discretion for priority locations to basically leverage for undergrounding or another, as it's written right now, as aesthetic enhancements throughout the city, which include landscaping, public art, and signage is how it's written. So an example. So try to put a picture to it. I pull up an example project. A lot are familiar. It's Clark Avenue, just south of Highway 20. We have the gas station that's been, looking to move forward with the project for a while, and then we have a vacant lot on the southeast corner there. So if you add up the red lines there, if you see the red, that's where the existing power poles are on that property. The $850 a lineal foot, it gets you, for that developer to put it in his estimate, if he came under the existing policy, it's about $212,000 it's going to cost him to underground that site. In addition to the entitlements, building, everything else. So you got a cost, because he's on the wrong side of the street, you got $212,000 cost to handle those undergrounding improvements. And so with this proposed improvement, utility policy, what we're saying is you set the base value as 25%, so you come up with a $53,000 amount that would need to be spent towards those alternative options. So a couple scenarios. So scenario one, developer relocates 2 of the poles to the outside of the sidewalk and out of the conflict with the proposed development project at a cost of $70,000. Typically relocate a power pole right now is about $35,000. And so they could come in here and, move a couple poles over, put them in a better spot, clean up some of that area there so it coordinates with their project and with the city's sidewalk and the road layout. And so with that scenario, they would basically spend more than that $53,000 and they would fulfill that obligation. Scenario 2, the developer relocates 1 pole at a cost of $35,000 and pays the shortfall amount to the city in the amount of $20,000. And so the numbers aren't exact right there. It's approximately, the number is to get to 53. And so whatever that shortfall amount is, he'd have to get up to, so it's approximately $20,000. They would pay that to the city for this priority. Basically, we build up this priority fund that can then be used at locations to either leverage with other projects or priority locations in the future for the city council's discretion. So with that, the city also reserves the discretion through the policy to, regarding large projects, that we still look at larger projects that require development plans, specific plans, and master plans, projects that are adjacent to designated streets requiring undergrounding. So if the city or if we'd establish an undergrounding district, then this wouldn't apply to that road necessarily. And then also we put an exemption in there to reserve for specific cases where it just is not allowed. There's always some sort of situation that might come up that's just totally infeasible. So there's a specific exemption in there just for the rare events that it can't be handled. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions about it.
Hey.
Thank you, Mayor. You're really on. I really appreciate the PowerPoints and how you described that whole process. Reading it is much more of a challenge to visually see how it all unfolds. And I think I'm a pretty good reader and understanding, but that was a real clear understanding of how that 25% potentially could be very nicely bundle. I'm calling it a bundle opportunity for developers. So thank you.
Through the mayor. Yep. Mr. Moody, thanks for all your work. You've been great in the ad hoc committee, and the insights you brought's been really helpful. The number you're looking for was 18,000. So to help you there, not 20.
I knew it was wrong. Oh, goodness.
But anytime you want to give me 20,000 instead of, and call it, we're good. But no, one thing I want to go back to is a key point. Go back to your, I think it's forward a couple of slides where you talk about the exceptions, and we reserve the right. Yeah. The first word on that last line, I want to stress that by having this flexibility, we're not going to allow anything that is unsafe to be done for our community at, a savings to a developer. The main thing is it's got to be compliant. It's got to be safe. I know that since we started this adventure with the ad hoc committee, I have paid a lot more attention to things like utilities in other cities and in our own cities to figure out. And it was one of the two of you mentioned Stabler Lane, and I've driven that for 30 years and never noticed that the utility poles are on the east side of Stabler because they're right there and they're high. But you drive by it every day and don't realize it. So we already have these in place, and so it's nothing that hasn't been done before. We're not going to compromise public safety, but I do want to go back to also what it could be used for. And I do think that we need to, the in lieu fee, with the aesthetic enhancements. I like the fact of the landscaping and stuff, but I do struggle with the whole notion of public art because, not that I'm against art, love art, but we've gotten around things, and I call it the monument that we made go up over at Dutch Brothers. It's like it's not even a gateway to the city, but we made them put this metal sign in that said welcome, or it says Yuba City on it and everything. It's like, I get we want to do different things, but I think the primary focus of the in lieu should be, the landscaping, the undergrounding of utilities on other highly identified corridors. It's just a personal preference, but we've spoke about it, so this is nothing that's new. I personally have mixed feelings about public art being in there.
So this is a policy tonight before the council, and so definitely it's open for comment and drafts and changes.
Through the mayor, I echo Councilman Shaw's applaud of the time and the effort that you and Ms. Langley have put in all the different things with the protection of the city, I think, as part of you, but also being reasonable to the developer. Really, the only comment I had, and again, as Councilman Shaw mentioned, this is something that you and I have had some talk with, is, again, I'm not against public art. I think that if a developer is paying an in lieu amount, then they should have the option of either having that go into the fund for which it was being generated, which in this case is undergrounding, or something that happens on that project, something that's directly related to that project and not something that might be used somewhere else in the city. Other than that, I support this policy, but I do think that it's I don't believe it was in the entire intent of the ad hoc committee to take in lieu money and spread it around to anything other than the undergrounding or site-specific projects to the project that's paying the in lieu fee.
All right. Any public comment?
None were received?
None received?
None received.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I too would just make real quick and thank you folks for all your hard work, and especially also my colleagues here, all you folks, everybody in the entire community. There's a lot of work went into the planning, a lot of brainstorming, I'm sure, a lot of debate, I'm sure, a lot of research, and I know an awful lot of time and hard work is reflected in this PowerPoint here. And it's definitely, the time has come for us to do what we can within our purview and within our authority and discretion to make development kick-started in our community. And I think we're doing so what's reasonable without cutting our own head off. I think we're reasonable concessions on our part. And it sounds like the development community is also on board with that. And it's really good to see the results of this effort, because until we do something like this, the conversations about impact fees being cost prohibitive to development are going to continue to occur. And I think this is going to put send us in the direction that we need to go. One thing that we're going to go for a motion here, but there's a couple of things that we have to amend. What's the protocol on that, Mr. City Attorney? We like to approve it, but there's a couple of things we'd like to see changed.
For example, if you wanted to approve agenda item or recommendation A and B, you'd say motion to approve items A and B with a modification to remove public art component. That'd be good enough.
I think there's probably a little bit more than that. Is that, let's see.
I could strike the public art and signage.
Yeah, I'm struggling for the language as well. So Shannon, you're usually pretty good at this stuff, or Mr. City Attorney.
Maybe the part where or other aesthetic enhancements throughout the city. If we want to restrict if we're not going to do it on the site specific, we're going to do, if we do it somewhere else throughout the city, it shall be related to undergrounding.
Undergrounding or site specific enhancements.
Yeah. Is that?
That's perfect.
All right.
Motion to approve with undergrounding or.
Well, I just want to
Through the
make sure we're clear.
Yeah.
That, so with this fund, that fund would have to be used for utilities at other locations or just at that site?
The intent would
Either
be
or.
through those identified undergrounding projects that you showed us, that the city had previously identified. I think Bridge Street Corridor is one of those as an example.
Yeah.
It could be used for those, but the other option to use the funds would have to be site-specific to the project that generated the in lieu fee as a consideration.
My understanding as well. That's good.
Through the mayor, just for clarification, any contribution or donation to the city would not be a fee or an in lieu fee. It would be a contribution if they couldn't make that 25% cap. I just want to make sure
Yes.
that's clear.
Yes. All right. And we've already confirmed no public comments, so we're at motion time if anybody would care to indulge in that.
Through the mayor, I'm not opposed to the aesthetic part of this fund or this donation, contribution. So I just want to have that said, that if we change it, it's fine, but I'm not opposed to the aspect of the recommendation by staff to having the aesthetic piece of it.
Okay, so noted. Thank you.
I'll take a stab at this motion. Through the mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt a resolution authorizing that the current development impact fees, including water and wastewater connection fees and extension fees, be reduced to match the current infill development impact fees. Also introduce a motion adopting item B, a resolution adopting an overhead utility policy and associated CEQA with the amendments as discussed.
Second.
And just to be clear, those amendments as discussed would be undergrounding or site-specific enhancements for identified underground utility projects or the specific site itself. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
And the second stands?
I'll second it again.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to near the end here. For future agenda items, Ms. Clerk, do we have any comments related to agenda items that may be coming in the future?
None have been received.
None received. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. I have one request. I think that we're very likely going to be continuing with virtual meetings into the near future. And I think the presentation at the very beginning of the discussion and action on measures to mitigate, in an interest of just making more continued efforts to communicate with the public, if we maybe do that at the beginning of every meeting until the crisis resolves itself, just a general update like we did today, I would appreciate that. Anything else? Nothing? All right. We'll go on to reports and communications from City Council, beginning with Councilmember Cardoza.
All right, I have a quiet couple of weeks here. We're going to start off with meetings this week. I attended the Senior Planning Commission meeting at the Senior Center. They got some exciting things that's going to be coming down the path, temporarily on hold, but they got some exciting stuff for the seniors. I attended the Sutter Beach Flood Control Agency meeting, the Homeless Ad Hoc Committee meeting with Councilmember Espandola and Sutter County staff. We're going to have some stuff coming in the near future, hopefully the next meeting, working with the county to help the homeless in our community. Attended the LAFCO meeting, and I also attended the Yuba City Development Commercial Broker meeting, which we just passed the agenda item on that. That was great work, or it was a great time listening to the developers and getting their thoughts. And then that's it for that. For chamber events, it was very, very quiet because of this event coming up in the community. I attended a ribbon cutting with the mayor at AJ Sandwiches. They're on Gray Avenue behind the old Umpqua Bank. That's his second location. He has one in Marysville, and he decided to move to Yuba City, open up a shop. So if you ever want to have some sandwiches, they do a great job. They have sandwiches and salads. Great folks. I'm happy to bring them in our community. For community events, starting off, Dr. Seuss Day. I had the honor of reading to the second and third graders at Park Avenue School, and also the honor of reading to the first and second graders of Riverbend Elementary. That was a fun time with all the kids. They had more questions than you could possibly answer, but I gave it my best shot. For city events, attended Coffee with a Cop with our Yuba City Police Department and McDonald's on Calusa Highway. Attended the St. Patrick's Day potluck at the Senior Center with the mayor. Also, I attended the food truck frenzy at the Senior Center. We served over 100 seniors, about 120 seniors lunch. And this was done by the Agency on Age Area 4. They plan on coming to our community a couple times a month to make sure the seniors get lunch. Twice a month. They were going to start in April, so that's going to be put on hold until further notice. But it was a great time. They had a food truck. The seniors were able to pick whichever meal they gave them a choice of 4, but we're going to drop it down to 2. They had a wonderful lunch, and it's all free to the seniors. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Espadilla.
One more real quick thing, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Happy St. Patty's Day to everybody out there. Now, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me push this. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to focus on the issue that we are all working and battling towards right now is this COVID-19 or coronavirus. And I just want to reiterate some of the things that we've all said and know that I've been really asking for our community to bring these items in many languages to help our community understand. So I feel, based on what we've been doing, that our city is very well prepared and that we're really hard at work for our community. What I'm asking of our community is for some patience with us in the process, compassion, and obviously a little bit of space, and hand washing often, doing the 20-second hand washing. And maybe we should do a 20-second hand washing on our Facebook or IG and demonstrating that. Maybe the mayor could do a little demonstration in one of the future meetings. I also urge our community to follow recommendation and guidelines as released from our city, Sutter County Public Health Officer, and Vice Mayor Boomgard talked about Dr. Liu and how amazing she has been in our work and continuing to keep us safe, and our emergency service folks, our healthcare providers, school districts and partners. I've been in communication with many of those folks in letting them know that we're on track and keeping forward. I'd like to thank many of our community partners for understanding, and the thing that is most important as one of your council and all of us together is the care for yourself and the care of your loved ones. So please focus on that, and also your neighbors. It's important to check up on elderly folks if they are, but take the right measures to do that. I do want to acknowledge that these are really challenging times and things could be feeling scary and awful at times. But just know that, to assure you that we are here to take care of you. We are here to take care of your loved ones. We hope that your health is strong, that your business continues to prosper, and our community will be stronger and greater out of this. Again, I just want to reiterate that I ask for your patience, your kindness, your compassion, and your willingness to do this together, because we all are in this together. There's no way out of it. And we will be together and better in the future. The resources that are really useful, as mentioned earlier, is the Yuba Center Coronavirus Call Center. Please utilize that number, 530-749-7700. Access the websites, bepreparedsutter.org, our city website, yubacity.net. Get on social media, but be aware that utilizing and forwarding and sharing on social media, that your sources are correct, that the information is valid. And there are some testing sites that you can go to your doctors to get a recommendation, and it's through Adventist Health, it's through Ampla Health, and it's through Peachtree. And just know that Many of us throughout the state and the country and the world are facing this with seriousness, and we will manage to survive this and do well after, but it may be in a time that will take us time to do this. And I thank you, and I appreciate working with each of you, council members, mayors, vice mayor, and assuring that our city's going to be better after this. Thank you.
Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep my comments very brief. First of all, I want to thank the ad hoc committee. Incredible group of people, all of them from the public sector, or the private sector, I should say, have their own businesses, and they gave up a lot of time, even getting together at the last minute to finish things up at a 7:30 a.m. meeting here at the City Hall. Great work. We got a lot more work ahead of us, and I want to just say publicly thank you. It's been great working with you so far. Focusing going forward, I have transit meeting coming up on Thursday. Currently, the only new news out of transit right now is in light of the decision by Yuba College to go virtual. The free bus service that was running daily from Sam's Club up to the Sutter County campus has been temporarily suspended in lieu of that, since there's no students there. And focused on what's ahead of us. Chiefs, thank you both again. Ms. Langley and our entire E-team, thank you guys for everything that's going. Stay focused, everyone in the community, and remain calm and take a deep breath. Because if you listen to a lot of things coming out, it's really common sense. I'm wondering which one of us up here did not take a shower yesterday because we're so far apart. But, it's, we all wash our hands. We all are cognizant about how not to get the flu. Just basically apply some common sense and take a deep breath. And as someone told me, anytime you face something, this too shall pass. It'll be behind us before you know it. So I'm thankful we got everybody at the helm that we do. We'll get through all of this and just remain calm. And I look forward to the work we got ahead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I, too, want to acknowledge the hard work of the ad hoc committee and the effort they put forward. I'm also looking forward to the next phase of that as we move towards the mid and higher range goals that will continue to spur development. I, like Councilman Cardoza, had the great opportunity through an invitation to read to second, third, and fourth graders at Lindcrest and Riverbend schools. And I would echo his comment that the questions you get asked by those folks will blow you away, but it was quite fun. I did attend the Builders and Developers meeting along with Councilman Cardoza and Mr. Moody and Ms. Langley. And you could tell it was palpable that, hey, for this council to do what they did tonight is meaningful to those folks. So I acknowledge and thank you for the efforts on their behalf and for the city's behalf. As far as COVID-19, we've said it a lot here tonight. Our leadership of our planning department for the emergency anyway, they're doing a great job. I think that we're as prepared as we can be in an ever-evolving situation. It's been said here that as public, you need to pay attention. We as a city, especially the mayor, in concert with the E-team and leadership of our group, our emergency operations group, will be providing timely and accurate information. And I strongly encourage you to take a look at those releases because they will contain the most factual information. Along that note, you also need to pay attention to Dr. Liu, who will be talking about the medical implications, and the Be Prepared Sutter and the coronavirus hotline. Those are truly your main efforts, or the main emphasis you should put on getting information. Realize that things are going to be happening around us, and those are based on things that are happening in those specific geographical areas. They may not immediately influence or affect Yuba City, but you can be assured that those things are being taken into consideration. And as the city makes the decisions in concert with Sutter County, because they truly are our partner in this coronavirus episode, is that we're making those decisions, and those folks are making those decisions with you, the public's best interest at heart. I attended a LAFCO meeting where the two main things were that there is a budget increase that will be brought to this council for approval. This was a statewide budget increase primarily for dues, but also due to the forecast before the coronavirus hit us was of some expanded activity coming through LAFCO, including Bogue Stewart Master Plan and other development opportunities. We also reviewed the Lakeside subdivision in Sutter Point, and it's quite a neat residential subdivision, and I encourage you, if you get a chance, to go take a look at that. That's going to be an interesting but very nice piece to be added to Sutter County. I'm going to conclude with a statement, and this is in relationship to our business community. Our businesses, especially the locally owned businesses, are going to be deeply affected, and I'm deeply concerned for them because it's going to not only affect them and the employees they employ, but it's also going to affect the city. And by that, I mean we're going to be in this thing together. Revenues are going to be down to them. Revenues are going to be down to us. We are going to be challenged in a way that I don't know that we've ever been challenged before. And that doesn't mean we're not up to the task. It's just it's going to be a different environment. I would really like us as a city to begin considering, and I know we already do a lot of this, is what role we might play in helping local business. And I know it's not necessarily a city essential function to do that, but there may be ways that we can continue to support local business by giving preference to buying and shopping local for those things that we haven't, that we don't have a specific, I guess if we're buying something, let's try to buy it local. Let's just put it that simple. The other thing is, maybe we need to start considering, and I would ask staff to, what kinds of things can we do to help, even though it might be small things, what kind of things can we do as a city to perhaps ease the burden on local business? Do we do things out of the box? Do we suspend licensing fees and permit fees? Again, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm challenging staff to take a look at those things. And I know that they have a fiscal implication, but these are tough times, and sometimes tough times mean that we have to take a little different way of looking at how we do business. We need our local businesses. We need our folks to stay employed. And for me, and I know the council likely echoes this, is we care. And we want to try to take care to the extent that a city has the ability to do so. With that, I think it's appropriate to say that I'm proud to serve the city of Yuba City in this trying time, along with the city council and with the staff. And we got to hang in there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your neighbors, especially those folks who might be isolated. And after that, thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Very well said. As far as meetings before coronavirus took over, I did went down to a TV studio down in Sacramento as part of my role as a member of the board of directors for the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, and we filmed a video. It was basically a fireside chat, if you will, between myself and their executive director, Barry Broom, regarding economic development opportunities and economic issues specific to Yuba City. Yuba County folks did the same thing on the same day, and so that's called The Download, which can be found at the GSEC website. Very informative. It was very nice to see them focusing on our area and doing what they can to help us out to get our economy a boost. As I said, the coronavirus kind of took over schedules. Everything was relegated to online, and we've been doing multiple calls a day regarding managing this. And enough thanks cannot be said to our executive chiefs and our interim city manager and all their staff and all our personnel stepping up to do what we can to manage this crisis. It will definitely, it's not going to be easy. I'm sure it's scary for a lot of people, and it's going to be expensive in the way revenues are affected publicly and privately, and so this is going to be challenging, and it's not going to be easy, but we will get through it. We'll do what we can. That perhaps life as we know it's going to change for a while, but we'll adapt, we'll overcome, we'll get through it. The bottom line is community and sticking together, not being selfish, and understanding that we have tough times ahead that we can get through together. We all have the utmost of confidence and support in all of our city staff, all of their executives, and all our folks who are stepping up, They're doing an outstanding job communicating with each other and also externally to our partners on both sides of the river. We are working to get together we possibly can to make sure the message is consistent and unified. We will be doing, I believe we're scheduled to do another video tomorrow. And if we don't have an update, if the update is there is no update, so be it. We will be up there. We will be communicating, excuse me, with our community and let folks know what is going on. Again, with their best interest and safety as number one. So the challenges are, it could get worse before it gets better, very likely will. As Vice Mayor said, other agencies or other geographic areas may be doing things a little bit different than what we are, but that's for their area. We have our own set of circumstances here. We have our own set of philosophies here, but know that what we are doing, the decisions we are making are in everyone's best interest, and it's not taken lightly, and there's reasons for what we do and what we don't do, and the timing for that. So bottom line is to stay calm, stay with us, frequently go to the websites previously mentioned. That's your best source of information. And we're in it to win it, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So that being said, I have...
The mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you. Sorry. I just, I want to add something that I just became aware of. And again, I mentioned just earlier about social media and the need for social media to be, all of us be responsible in what we're posting and commenting. So we are in communication, and I'll explain to you after the meeting, Mayor. We are in communication with Dr. Liu. You're in those meetings, our E-team is in the meetings. All of us have different information coming in consistently. So there is no decision that is not considered into that part of Dr. Liu's. Just because she's not here physically with us today doesn't mean that we're not in constant communication with her. And I hope, again, that we continue to follow exactly what you just said, because that's how our community can get through this, all of us safe and with accurate and factual information. Thank you again.
I have the unfortunate news to relay that the wife of our former Mayor Cash Gill, Nina Gill, recently passed away. And our condolences from our council go out to him and his family for their loss. Very sad indeed. And with that, I would like to adjourn the meeting today in her honor and memory of Miss Nina Gill. Thank you very much.